All characters and events in this publication, other than those clearly in the public domain, are fictitious, and any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. Copyright 2016 by R.L. Coy. R.L. Coy Books presents The Master of Names by R.L. Coy. A reading by Jeanette Coy. Chapter 3, Part 2. Plum saw the many tapestries and paintings adorning the walls. These paintings were all amazing landscapes from different kingdoms and places in lore. They came to a long corridor. On either side were many doors, and whitewashed walls with gold-plated candelabras affixed to the walls between each of the doors. Thomas stopped, turned around, and looked at Plum and Drake with his thin hazel eyes. "Here we are, room 406, he said. He got out his ring of keys and unlocked the door before motioning for Drake and Plum to enter. Inside were 2 single beds, a painting, and a fireplace with one comfortable-looking armchair. The bathroom was through a little door to the left of the beds. Thomas finally said, "I hope you will find everything to your satisfaction." Then he gave Drake the room key and left. "Well," Drake said, "I hope this is comfortable enough. Let us go downstairs and see what food they have." They went back downstairs, the way Thomas had gone, back down into the bustling, noisy dining hall. Thomas came up to them and said, "So what can I get for you? Unfortunately, we don't have any red meat or grain, only seafood." Drake replied, "Well, that will be fine. Can I have 2 fish grilled and a side of crunchy potatoes to share?" Thomas asked, "Would you like some of our famous pale ale?" Smiling broadly, Drake said, "Bring 2 half pints." "All right," said Thomas with a nod. Drake leaned back in his chair and lit his pipe. "Now let us get on to some more pressing matters. When you get to the school, we will have to present them with your letter, and I will leave you in the capable hands of your tutor. But that does not mean we will not keep in touch." Plum stared at Drake, but before he could say anything, the food had arrived, and Drake started eating the hearty meal. After a minute, Drake realized that Plum was not eating, just looking forlornly at his food. Drake put down his knife and fork. "Why are you looking so sad?" Plum looked back up at him. "I miss my mother." Drake nodded at Plum. "I'm sorry about that. Each year in each of the 5 kingdoms, there is a census, and you were chosen. That is how the school has managed to keep a political finger in Shine's pie. I don't agree with taking young boys away involuntarily." Drake paused, took a swallow of his beer, and continued, "But it has worked for centuries. It has kept the peace and stopped evil from completely taking over our world. This is the only way it can be. What you're feeling is completely normal." Plum contemplated his words and looked at Drake for a long time. "I know. I have no regrets. I made this decision of my own free will, but I'm still afraid, Plum said finally. Everyone gets afraid now and again, but the absolute height of maturity is not to be afraid to sometimes take risks and step into the unknown. Come on, eat your food. I have to take care of some business tonight, and you best get some sleep. It's been a long day, and tomorrow won't be any easier. With that, Drake picked up his fork again and began eating. Plum followed suit. After they had finished the meal, they went back upstairs to the room. How long will your business take tonight? Plum asked. I will be back at 6 o'clock in the morning at the latest, and then we will be off to the school. Plum got ready for bed. Pulling off his white shirt and leather pants, he washed his face in the basin and then climbed into bed, getting underneath the sheet covers and pulling them right up to his shoulders. It was close to midnight, and the last thing he saw as sleep took him was Drake sitting by the fire, smoking his pipe. Drake noticed Plum drift off and got up out of his chair. He quietly walked towards the door and eased it closed behind him. Then he left the inn and was swallowed up by the night. He headed towards the city centre, where even at this hour there was a buzz of activity. Drake took a sharp left and began walking towards one of the larger buildings in Kingsport, where the Duke of Kingsport was expected to have a meeting with him. As he got closer, he saw the large house in the distance, only 2 miles away, which was elevated on a huge wooden platform. Drake thought to himself, so that's the Duke's house. It is certainly bigger than a lot of other places around here. He picked up his pace and soon reached the gate of the manor house. A tall guard was standing there. He was a strong, robust man with red hair, blue eyes, and a gaunt countenance to his features, which added to the impression that this man was not to be trifled with. As Drake was approaching, the guard peered at him. "What is your business at the manor?" he asked Drake. "Well, I am here to see Duke Arnold von Steinway. I have official business regarding a matter of some importance." "What matter?" the guard asked, giving Drake a curious look. Drake, raising his voice in anger, barked at him. "That is none of your business, guard. Now run along and let Arnold know that the Prince of Shine is here." The guard was clearly taken aback, but he dropped into a quick bow from the waist and said hurriedly, "As you wish, your highness." Opening the gate to the manor house, the guard quickly ran up the wooden steps. An envoy came out of the house and talked with the guard. Drake couldn't quite see his face, but he could make out a small, imp-like figure beneath the robes of turquoise blue, trimmed with fluorescent green, the standard colours of Kingsport. The guard said to Drake, "Wait here. I will see if there is any validity to your claim." Drake was slightly annoyed, as it was plainly obvious who he was, and anyone who saw the royal emblem on his tunic would know him. It was the first rule. Any citizen of the 5 kingdoms of law should recognize the standard of the nobles of Shine. This character is not so bright, thought Drake. Or maybe he is so constricted by his script that he did not even notice the royal standard on my tunic. The guard went back up to the man. The imp man started shouting and waving his hands around wildly at the guard for his incompetence. Then he quickly ran inside the house to tell his master that Drake had arrived. He ran down the hall that was richly appointed with tapestries, landscape paintings, small statues, and busts of Duke Arnold. He threw open the 2 grand oak doors, swinging them back, and entered the dining hall, where his eyes fixed on a tall, bald man with a monocle who was devouring the remainder of a piece of chicken. "What is it, Hans?" said the man, still stuffing the chicken in his mouth. The little man was almost out of breath from the run, even though it had only been a short distance. He rested his hands on his knees, trying to catch his breath. Finally, he said, "Prince Drake is outside. He is here for the meeting." Arnold smiled with satisfaction. "Ah, good. Go ask the guard to let him in." "Yes, my lord." Hans began walking back out of the dining room and into the main hall of the manor, then back to the front door. Standing by the guard, the little imp said to Drake, "I am terribly sorry to put you to any inconvenience. Last week the guard mixed up the postman and thought he was an intruder. It is so difficult to get good help these days." He sighed. Drake nodded and followed Hans back up the wooden steps, the wood creaking softly under their feet. Hans remarked, "I'm getting so tired of these creaking boards. I must remind my master to attend to them one of these days." "Really?" Drake asked half-heartedly, not particularly interested with the subject. The little man just nodded. Drake had visited Duke Arnold before, but it had been when he was very young. That was before he was of age, and the arcane senses had discovered Drake's magical abilities. They finally reached the ornately decorated hallway. Hans motioned for Drake to enter. Drake looked around the hall and saw that it had the usual excessive show of wealth that dukes were prone to doing. It was ridiculous, and all dukes really did all day was sit on their butts and sign state papers. They didn't do any real work. At least Drake had never seen them doing anything, and never once had any of them been in combat, that was for sure. They walked along the hallway until they came to a great pair of oak doors with the crest of Kingsport engraved into the wood. As the little man swung the door open, Drake said under his breath, "And let the game of politics begin."